I remember when I was little, people would pray for a good death at church. I wasn't always sure what that meant to me. It was very confusing. Pray for a good death. To me, that wasn't really possible because I'd be dead. But I understand what all those grown-ups were praying for now, all these years later. Pope Francis said that life does not end with death. He died at home in his own bed at the age of 88 on Easter Sunday. And to me, that is God. And that is a good death. He didn't die when all the experts and all the doctors told us he was going to die months ago. When God called him home, he died. And that's providence. John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and James Monroe, all founding fathers, all died on the 4th of July. That is providence. Donald Trump's birthday, June 14th, falls on Flag Day. That is providence. That bullet in Butler, Pennsylvania, that same bullet that could have and probably should have killed him, but missed, that is providence. None of this, of course, is coincidence. None of it is random. It is all part of some divine plan, some plan. And here was President Trump today speaking at the White House Easter egg roll.
I just signed an executive order putting the flags of our country, all of them, all federal flags and state flags, at half-mast in honor of Pope Francis. So he was a good man, worked hard. He loved the world, and it's an honor to do that.
The president posting on Truth Social, rest in peace, Pope Francis. May God bless him and all who loved him. And Vice President J.D. Vance posting this just hours after sitting with the Pope a day ago. I just learned about the Pope passing. My heart goes out to the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him. I was with him yesterday, though he was obviously very ill. May God rest his soul. That coming from two men who this Pope was very critical of, a Pope who was almost certainly on the left politically, a Pope who at times was very political, a Pope who at times would criticize some and not criticize others. Pope Francis in 2022, when talking about illegal aliens, said that exclusion of migrants is scandalous and criminal. And right before the 2016 election, this Pope, the leader of 1.5 billion Catholics worldwide and 53 million here in the United States, suggested that Donald Trump was not a Christian because he wanted to build a wall at the southern border, which is an interesting thing for someone to say who lives behind a 40-foot wall. Alex Salvia, our Rome correspondent, shot this video of that wall for us today. If you've never been to the City of the Vatican, it's literally a city right in the middle of Rome, and it is surrounded on all four sides by walls. And if you trespass or try to climb over any one of those walls, you'll be arrested immediately. But Pope Francis told the world to build bridges, not walls. He said that Donald Trump is not a Christian for saying he wanted to build a wall and that he would confront Donald Trump about the southern border wall. That was how Donald Trump was treated by this Pope. But when Joe Biden visited the Vatican in January, this Pope didn't seem to mind that Joe Biden was leading a party that has morphed from being pro-choice to pro-abortion, and that Joe Biden, a Catholic himself, is not only pro-abortion, he goes to pro-abortion rallies. And after meeting Joe Biden, the Pope said about the meeting, Biden said, quote, "We talked about the fact that he was happy that I was a good Catholic and I should keep receiving communion." That was Joe Biden right after the meeting. And the Pope apparently had no problem with Joe Biden saying any of this.
51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court, and they passed a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
So extreme that women and girls were forced to bear their rapist's child. It just stuns me. So extreme that doctors will be criminalized for fulfilling their duty to care.
That is not a pro-life former president. That is a pro-abortion former president. If Joe Biden was such a good Catholic, why were so many of his policies so anti-Catholic? Do you remember this past summer when Joe Biden made the sign of the cross at a pro-abortion rally? I don't know how Joe Biden was raised, but a good Catholic doesn't make the sign of a cross at a pro-abortion rally. And that's because Joe Biden is not a good Catholic. And most Americans agree with that. A Pew Research study found that only 13% of Americans think that Joe Biden is a very religious man. The Vatican is also against sex change surgery, something Joe Biden called gender-affirming care. That's an issue that Joe Biden supported, but again, none of this was ever brought up when Joe Biden was at the Vatican. This Pope never brought that up 4 months ago. But this Pope had no problem criticizing Donald Trump over deporting illegal aliens just 3 months ago. And when I hear that, I wonder what the Pope would say to the parents of Americans who have been killed by illegals, who have been killed by people that shouldn't be here in this country, people who would be arrested if they broke into the city of the Vatican. I spoke with Rachel Morin's mother last week on this show. Rachel Morin, the Maryland mother of 5 who was brutally murdered by an illegal alien. And I wonder what this Pope's message would have been to her. And I wonder what this Pope thought about this. 1 year ago today, Joe Biden combined the White House Easter celebration with something we just invented called Trans Day of Visibility because they fell on the same day.
Every year for the past several years, on March 31st, Transgender Day of Visibility is marked. And as we know, for folks who understand the calendar and how it works, Easter falls on different Sundays, right? Every year. And this year it happened to coincide with Transgender Visibility Day. And so that is the simple fact. That is what has happened. That is where we are.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think we should do that. Let's combine the resurrection of Jesus with people who want to surgically remove their private parts. Let's do that. Let's just knock both those out on the same day at the White House. Why not? 1 year later, at that very same White House, a whole lot has changed. No more Trans Day of Visibility. That will not happen again under this administration. They can be visible somewhere else. And instead, at the White House, we got images like this today. The president coloring with kids.
You're the best.
I got the tree. I will. Come on. Well, you did a good job. Man, I'll do it. I'll sign all of them.
Stayed in the lines, too. He did a good job. Again, a year ago, the scene was a little bit different when Joe Biden, the good Catholic, thought it was a good idea to invite this very confused man to the White House. What you're looking at here is a man who decided to take his top off during a pride event at the White House and show the world his fake prosthetic breasts. Again, that's a man, so men don't have breasts, okay? This was at Joe Biden's White House. And when Joe tried to answer questions from the media about why the White House would ever combine the holiest day on the Christian calendar with something called Trans Day of Visibility, an intern in a bunny suit did this right here to the most powerful man in the world. The man we were all told was a very good Catholic.
Pakistan should not, and Afghanistan should be people.
Oh, the Easter Bunny, Mr. President.
The difference 1 year later, again, is funny, deliberately so, with a much more attractive, by the way, bunny. Think about the bunny that you just saw, and think about the bunny standing next to the 47th President, Donald Trump there. This is what happened with that same silly rabbit today at the White House.
Do you remember the bunny with Joe Biden? Remember? Do you remember when the bunny took Joe Biden out? He's not taking Trump out. Anyway, that was a beautiful moment when the bunny saved Joe Biden.
Okay, I don't know if we have a picture of the two bunnies, by the way, but even the bunny under Donald Trump that was at his Easter egg roll is just like a more fit, not wearing a mask bunny. Rabbit. Oh, there we go. Look at the bunny. Look at the one with Biden's got a mask and glasses. Like, why do we have to put glasses on the bunny? All right. Trump's bunny, good looking bunny right there. Proportionally so. The ears are good and sturdy. Looks like he's just a healthy bunny right there. Back to the Pope. There's going to be a lot written and said over the next several weeks about this pope. A good and decent man, but someone who is also very political and at times could be ambiguous with church teachings that have been around for 2,000 years. A pope who probably wanted Joe or Kamala to win the last election. A pope who called Joe Biden a good Catholic, and I guess I'm just not sure why.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.